Unless you've been living under a rock, you likely already know about the scandal that has taken social media by storm. This Coldplay outing of a workplace affair that, I mean, people are saying this has rocked the internet more intensely than anything else this year. And for good reason. It's scandalous. Everybody loves a scandal. But then everyone stops to ask themselves, what about the kids? And obviously, in my line of work, I get this question a lot. Do I tell my kids about the affair? Do I not? And what I've found are there are two schools of thought. There are the people who say, well, my children deserve to know the truth. And then there are the people who say, I want to shield my kids as much as I can so that their idea of their other parent isn't tainted in a way that can't be recovered. But then there are the situations where you're outed at a concert and we don't know what to make of it because inevitably the kids will find out. That's why I had to invite Erin Morrison on with us again for round like 800 on this podcast, because not only is she the best person to talk to about this because of her work as a conscious parenting practitioner, an author, someone who helps parents every single day how to find the right words for their kids in every situation, but she's just like my favorite human. So it was like a double whammy. Double whammy. Thanks for being here, Erin.
Oh my gosh. Okay, same favorite person. Also, we haven't even talked about this one-on-one, just us. So I'm so happy we get to do it here too because
It's happening. It's happening. It's happening so fast. Like I left your house yesterday and on the way home, it was like blowing up my feeds. And at first I was like, oh God, this is going to be good social media stuff. But as soon as I started sharing, everyone had something to say from, I can't believe you're sharing this. Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry. It's not like I was Chris Martin of Coldplay, but then there are a lot of people who say, oh my God, I feel so bad for the kids. And
Of course.
regardless of what their ages are, I have always been team shield your kids from information that probably isn't appropriate to their parenting experience with this person. But yet here we are.
100%. And I know that for most parents, we want to shield our kids from things that they don't need to know, but there are situations where our children will come across information, whether it is unfortunately on the internet and it's everybody's, like joke of the day, or it's something that happened in front of the kids or someone else knows and tells your children. And so I'm sure we agree on this. It's always on an as like a need to know basis, right? There are so many situations where we have to tell our children about things we do not want to tell them. But when information comes from their safe, trusted caregiver, it allows them to feel a little more shielded from the harsh reality that's in front of them. I mean, and I'm sure we agree 100% on that, like that no one wants to tell their child, by the way, you're going to be online and dad's going to be all over the news with that woman that he's always with at work. But
You
here's
mean the one
here,
who was just at our family barbecue? How
mm,
could that be?
mm,
Oh, I can't.
I know,
We
I
both
know.
have green drinks. I can't even
Same.
imagine. Mine is so not matcha because ew. Mm,
You need my matcha, but we'll get into that. I like can't. I need to make you my matcha. This is fantastic. But I'm going to switch to almond milk.
okay. Well,
Mm-hmm.
all that to say, there is a shock factor involved. Something tells me, or what I've seen in my years of working with couples, is that when there is an affair or infidelity of any kind, it's not like there's this huge surprise, like everything was perfect. There's always going to be, if people are honest with themselves, there's most often going to either be already a strain on the relationship and or a suspicion of some sort, right? Like, not that that makes it okay, but what I'm saying is in the larger sense, for the woman on the receiving end of this who had to find out in this way and whose life is now turned upside down, I'm sure that whatever was going on in the home, this split may cause actually her to step into her own power. She might feel better about having ended a relationship with somebody she had to wonder about. But nonetheless, kids, no matter their age, are affected by divorce. I get stopped all the time by adults who have grown up, have survived their parents' divorce, but will say to me, there were so many things I wish I didn't know. Like I just didn't
Oh,
need to know. But then you have scorned people whose egos are raging in the beginning of the divorce process, who really feel justified in letting their kids know certain information because they think it's going to, I don't know. That's the question. Like, what is your intent here?
I
Right.
know.
And what we know is professionally is when you tell a child about the divorce, you never want to paint one of the parents as the bad guy. But in this case, somebody's the bad guy. So what now? What are the best ways we can handle this when our kids find out information that is way bigger than them?
Right. And I think with any situation, like regardless of what you are talking to your child about when it's hard, especially if it's about another parent, you always want to start with, what are you thinking? What questions do you have? You always want to give them the floor first to disclose what it is they're thinking about or they're wondering or worrying before you also word vomit out too much information that they need or don't need to know.
That's a
Um,
really good point, and I'm grateful for that point, because I think naturally as parents our inclination would be to like jump in and say all the things to fix the situation, thus shutting down, like putting the drain, stopping the flow from our kids like stream of thoughts. We've now put the narrative in their heads.
100%. Like if this happens all the time, it's happened with my own children, and they're not old enough. If you feel they're not old enough to understand sex, right? Like this is not related. This is similar, but it's related. Um, Before you go ahead and they say, "What's this?" What do you know about that? I'm so curious, like what you want to know, what you've heard, like how can I help you understand it more? You may ask that question and be like, oh my gosh, they actually had no idea what they were asking. They just heard a word. The same would go, unfortunately, for this situation. I have no idea how old these children are. Who knows what was going on, like you said before with the mom. But always taking a step back before you react and allowing it to be more about the child than about you and your own fears and your own worries. Because unfortunately, like that's how we all operate. We're all human. We all think first with our own experiences and our own emotions. But when you're a parent, you're given this amazing privilege to step in to your own power and your own pause to not say and do things and react and actually give the floor to your child. So then you can make the best choice possible with the next thing you're going to say or the next piece of information you have to give them.
I mean, obviously this is the way it should be done, but I think when there's so much pain behind the reason for having this
Mhm.
conversation, right? Nobody wants to have a conversation like this with their kids. It's really hard for the average person who is not already like a parenting specialist. I preach this day in and day out: separate your emotions from the experience with your child. Most people can't do that. Like, and what they, when they try to, if it's inauthentic, it's going to come out somewhere else, right? So like, you tell a child, oh, but don't worry, he's still a great dad, and then 3 days later they hear you on the phone with your friend and they're like overhearing
Mhm.
you talk about this piece of shit who ruined your life. So it's a very tricky thing, and it's really hard to do. That's why, again, I want to go back to asking them what they know, because it's almost like you're giving yourself a minute to collect
Oh,
yourself and your
oh my
feelings.
gosh. Of course. Buy
And
yourself time. Call your therapist immediately or your coach or whatever.
so a lot of times for kids, they'll come home and either the other parent has told them something that you weren't ready for your child to know, or they'll hear something at school. Like I always share the story about how Bella came home and asked me what revorsed meant because she overheard the word divorce. It was my fault for never explaining divorce to her using that word because she was only 2. I didn't think I had to. So now she's like, "Are you revolt?" Like she didn't get it.
Right.
And luckily it was just that. It wasn't anything more scandalous, but kids will come home and want answers. And that's it's a very heavy thing when it falls into your lap.
It's so heavy. And I love the idea of a pause, but if that's not what happens and you do overindulge with information and you see your child's face, it's okay to stop there too. I think that's the important thing to note. It's like when we talk about parenting things on podcasts or wherever, it seems like there's just this one way to do it. Okay, pause, don't say anything, ask questions. But for most of us, it doesn't work that way. Most of us, we step over the line. We're like, shit, I shouldn't have said that to my daughter. You know what, sweetie? These are big questions. You're right. Like, let's take a step back. Like, you're allowed to make a mistake and then reverse. Like it's not always going to be perfect. And I think that's like the most important thing to stress to parents because it seems like there's perfect ways to handle things. It's never going to be that way. But the moment you catch yourself or you see the look in your child's face or you realize maybe they weren't asking as detailed information as you thought, then you can backtrack. Then you can start from the place of asking them questions again.
Okay. Now here's a question. In your perspective, let's say the child finds out about the infidelity, right? One of the parents was unfaithful. That's the reason for the divorce. If they come to you with questions, but you were not the one who engaged in said acts, would it be right to say, you know what, that was something your father did, you should talk to him about it? Or can you just take the stage and speak on it for yourself? I don't know. I mean, I'm genuinely asking because I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I use the term all the time, appropriate honesty, for a reason, because it means that it's appropriate based on your child's age and the child in front of you that you know. If you have two children, three children, they're all going to experience things so differently. So if your teenager comes to you, you're going to be giving them more appropriate information than you would a child who's 6 or 7,
Mhm.
and that has to be, again, in that moment, if they do ask you that question, I'd love to know what, like, why are you asking this? Where did you hear this? How are you feeling? I'd love to know what you're thinking about or how you felt. And if you don't know what to say, you can always say, this is so important and I want to give you the best answer possible. I'm going to think about this. I want to make sure I say it exactly how you need to hear it. And then, yes, call your therapist. Call, if you're talking to that person, how they want to, how you'd want to handle it. You're probably not in the best co-parenting situation in that moment. So it's okay to pause, because what I mean, and I'll backtrack, by appropriate honesty is that when we're honest with our kids, sometimes we think, oh, I have to be honest. And we blurt out so much information that's more about our own emotions
Mhm.
versus the actual facts that are going to help our children. The appropriate part is about what is best for my child to know in this moment so that they can grow and that they can feel like they can trust their parents and thrive.
Mhm.
I know that's such a broad answer, but it truly is different for every single child. So we can go by age, but generally speaking, I love saying appropriate honesty. Is this what they need to know now? And then what information is necessary for them to know so that they can feel safe and trust me as their parent, that I'm going to give them information that's going to help them, not hurt them. And
And
yeah.
correct. And I'm wondering, like in the case of infidelity, which is, a betrayal of trust, how do you explain that to a child and then also say this person is still trustworthy? Because I'm very much of the mindset that an adult indiscretion does not automatically mean somebody's a bad parent. But most angry divorcing people who find out they've been cheating on will say, well, how can I trust this person with my kid if I couldn't trust them, at work? Two
Mhm,
totally separate things. But
you're
yet
right.
this thing happened and you still have to help your child feel safe with them. So what do you say in that situation?
So I'm in the same camp with you. I do not think that makes someone a terrible person. And I also think when you're a parent, every choice you make does affect your children. So does that mean does that mean that this guy, I just can't get the picture out of my head. Does that mean that this guy and this woman intentionally made this choice because they didn't care about their children? Of course not. That's not what they did. But when you do, sorry, I hear my dog. When
Yeah.
you do make a choice in your life as a parent, it is ultimately going to affect your child. Like it's going to in some way. That being said, you can absolutely say to your children, and in again the age appropriate way, how if you have a brother or sister, you have a cousin or someone in your life that you love them and they're so much fun and we have a good time, but also sometimes they hurt you and they do things that you wish that they didn't do. I'm going to use that as a comparison. It's not the same thing, but that's the most, that's the closest thing I can explain to you. And that's how it could be. That's what dad and mom, this thing happened. And yeah, it hurt me so much. And I would love to hear how you feel about it too. But I'm going to handle that for me. Right? Mommy has people in her life that are going to help her. And I'm here to help you.
Hmm.
Let's talk about this X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
I think you can give it as little information as possible. If the child is older and they ask more details, why did they do it? Who is that person? Are they my new mom or dad? Then again, if you don't have those answers, I'm going to get back to you and I want to give you a good answer. If you do have those answers, great. You can give it to them, right then and there. But I am absolutely, at least if for like I'm thinking of my kids, they would rather more honesty, and I would be okay with giving them more honesty in a situation that I know might be hard for them versus trying to cover up and lie and pretend like things are okay. Because my kids can sniff out the truth and they know when I'm mad. If I'm mad at my husband, they
They
know, they can
know,
tell.
right?
And I
Most
tell
kids
them,
are going to be able to sniff out the truth, right?
hey,
And And that's where they're always like, I stress to my clients all the time the importance of both ends. Mommy can be both really upset with daddy right now and know that
Mm-hmm.
he loves you and you deserve to have a great time with him. Like the two are not the same, right? Like, but this is coming from a place of imagining everyone's going to handle things without their ego at play. I want to go back to something you said about the sex piece of it,
Mm-hmm.
because well, hopefully, when your child's like, 6 or 7 years old and they overhear that daddy had an affair or mommy had an affair, it's not being explained as like, yeah, they wanted to go have sex with somebody else. But my understanding of my parents' affair, I was just at the cusp of understanding that like adults did things in bed together. I didn't necessarily know the nitty-gritty details, but
Mm-hmm.
my parent my dad's affair was dropped in my lap, and then I had to go off to his apartment a few hours later with this woman who now made my mom cry, anyway. But I remember like I didn't have a they didn't give me a bedroom. So at night I would like crawl outside their bedroom door because I wanted to know what was going on in there. I wanted to know like what was so bad about them being in bed together. What were they doing? And it just forced me to grow up way faster than I needed to. Like I wasn't ready for that understanding yet, and it damaged me in a lot of ways. So how do you explain, unfortunately kids over a certain age are going to know that an affair means sex, and that's really cringy because nobody wants to think of their parents ever, no matter
Never.
how old you are, having sex. And then it's out there in their faces. We'll come back to that, but how do you explain what an affair actually is when the child hears that word to a kid who doesn't know what sex is yet?
Of course. Yeah. And I think, again, it's about making a promise. I think you use words and understandings, from your life. And it's like, when we get married, we make a promise, right? And it's saying, I love you, you love me. We're just going to love each other. And you know what? That didn't happen here, right? Maybe they fell in love or something. I mean, again, so it's like I have to know the situation, but I think it's important to put things to simplify it for them, but always to wrap it up with and I'm handling it, right? And I'm going to be okay. I'm sad now. It's normal, right? If your friend tells you they're going to give you it's like too simplified. If your friend says they're going to give you 2 stickers at lunchtime and then they don't give it to you, you're going to be so sad. You're going to think they're not a good friend, like that kind of thing.
So
Um
daddy took my stickers away.
Frickin' took my stickers. But, with being honest with your kids, it's so important to know that like the one conversation you have is probably it's not gonna be that one conversation. They're gonna
No,
come to you
it's
again and
not.
you want them to. And the truth is no one's prepared to have these conversations. Like I wouldn't be prepared to have the conversation right now, even though I talk about it. It's gonna take time and trusting in yourself that you always have your child. We say always have your child at the forefront of every, conversation, especially regarding divorce. And knowing that you'll mess up. You're
Mhm,
gonna know that you're gonna mess up, that you're gonna make
mhm,
some mistakes, but it doesn't mean that that one conversation is going to scar them for life,
mhm,
hopefully. If
mhm.
you're listening to this podcast or this chat, probably not. You're probably not going to do something that you care enough to like, listen and make sure that you're making the right choices. But I think no one's prepared for this type of conversation, and you just
No.
really trying to do your best.
Yeah, and something I tell my clients who are talking to their kids about, or if their kids have come with questions about, you know, maybe my client has shielded the child from certain truths and realities about the
Mm,
other woman, but now time has passed and the kid is connecting dots, and they're asking, are you divorced because of this person? Or did daddy have this girlfriend before you got divorced? Something I always tell my clients is, even if you're put in that really tough spot to have that conversation, don't forget that you are not the one who engaged in the act that is disappointing your child. So it may be really difficult to have a conversation that is going to be uncomfortable for your child. But at the end of the day, this only changes their perception of the person who engaged in the bad act, not yours. So
that's
take a deep breath
huge.
and just know that, and know if you're that concerned, it's because you really care. You don't want your child to have to know, but you can't control that your ex made a decision, a selfish decision that was ultimately going to impact the whole family.
And that's beautiful. And I think too, you made me think of something we had talked about before is like, am I giving my child this information to somehow convince them that I'm the good one and they're not the good one, right? I feel like that's such a important piece. Not that we ever intentionally set out to do it, But we have to constantly check ourselves in these types of conversations, because how could you? It is absolutely impossible to remove every single emotion you have about a co-parent and ex, when, especially when they've hurt you repeatedly.
Hmm.
How could you not? So knowing that you have to keep checking in with yourself on that, because there are probably so many times you're like, why am I trying to convince your children? No, if your child's coming to you, you're already the safe parent, you're already the one that they're asking, please explain this to me, please
Such a
help me
good point.
understand.
That is such a good point. I'm glad you said this. It's actually giving me so much relief because had to have a difficult conversation with my daughter last week who was asking questions, and I was emotional over the fact that she was even asking them, and it never dawned on me that she probably only came to me with them because of our safe connection. So I appreciate you pointing that out. I want to go to the kids that are a little bit older who already understand what sex is. I will have clients say to me, well, it's not like they don't know what adults do. They already know how it works. And I'll say to them, would you sit your children down and tell them about your best friend's sex life when she starts dating again, or your friend around the block who had an affair? No, you wouldn't, because you don't watch sex scenes on TV with your kids for a reason. It's uncomfortable. And if you do, that's a separate conversation. But why would you then think it's okay to openly discuss the sex life of their other parent, right? Just because they know what sex is doesn't mean it's a topic that they can handle. And I'm just wondering, what you can say in those moments,
Hmm.
because it is cringy and they know what an affair means. And now they're picturing their parent in this situation. And this is where the anger really ramps up. And developmentally, it's age appropriate for children like preteen,
Yeah.
teenage age to have to pick a villain in the situation. So how do you rationalize it with a child who actually knows what's going on?
Yeah, and I think it's different between, like, the child directly asks that question, like, did they have sex, and like, what does this mean, versus you divulging the information about talking about their sex life. Like, absolutely not. There is so much research that shows that regardless of the child's age, I think it's Mnuchin in Family Systems, if you remember him, that just talks about how, like, regardless, there's generational boundaries, and regardless of the age, the child is always the child, the adult is always the caregiver. And so even when you think that maybe they understand sex, that is not a boundary that needs to be crossed. I love saying this often because I know a lot of us say, but my child's my best friend. I know what people mean when they say that, but, like, just to divide it for those who don't understand boundaries, your child can feel like you're their best friend,
Spell it
but
out for me.
you should never feel like your daughter is, or your son is, your best friend, in the sense that you could tell things that you tell to your best friend to your child. But yes, the child should feel like you are their best friend, where they could tell things to you like they would their best friend. So that's the differentiation. And I say that with love, because I know I would say that too. Oh my God, like my bestie, I love her, right? I love my son too. I like love every little thing they tell me. I don't tell them every little thing just because we're, mom, son, mom, daughter, best friends. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, right?
Yeah. No, I
Okay.
know. And there's certain situations, even
Yeah.
like within our friend group, if, in our specific situation, we have a very tight knit friend group, and the father of one of her friends is not well. He's sick. And there was a question of like, do we tell the kids? When do we tell the kids? And it wasn't until I knew, like, I was never going to sit down and be like, so your friend's dad is sick. It wasn't until I knew she was going to have to face it
Mm-hmm.
or be confronted with it and that other kids would be talking about it that I had the conversation with her. And I think that's another good point, too. You don't need to have these conversations if you're in a bubble of life where your child may not ever find out, or, like if this was a one
God
time
willing, they don't.
Right. Like I would not have told Bella that information because it is scary and it is heavy, and then it causes anxiety in her about what's going to happen. Is this person going to die? Or what if you have a
Oh,
tummy ache? Like,
you know.
you know what I mean? So I was never going to share that with her until I actually had to. And that's something else to keep in mind also.
Can I tell you, I had a lot of people reach out to me about the Texas flooding, because, Michelle and I both have children who go to sleepaway camps.
Ugh,
And a lot of people which was beyond, and I was actually off social media in that period of time. So I felt like
I'm glad because, and
I,
uh, yours wasn't at camp yet, but
mm-mm.
mine was. And I'm like already Googling like the placement of the bunks near the lake. I mean, it's traumatizing for us. I know what you're going to say. At no point, and I was so happy the camp sent an email home about this, that they
Yeah.
said, Our children don't have access to the news. This isn't a conversation we're having with them. And if you choose to have it with them over the break, make sure your child knows that this is like a sensitive topic. Other kids don't need to know about this right now.
100%. And I think that, well, a lot of the questions were coming in. What do I do? Some people they were in the same community. And so naturally, that was going to be a conversation that they had to have, right? Others were saying that their children were away at sleepaway camp and parents were emailing the children, telling them about the kids in the community when they didn't know. This is such a difficult thing. So my piece to say there is that whenever you're going to tell your child something, make sure you're telling them something because it's going to help them in some way, help them make sense of their personal situation, their community, or if they're going to have access to the news. Any other reason, I unfortunately see it happen a lot today, where parents tend to take their own emotions, their own like overwhelm and guilt about the world or what's going on, and like feel like telling their child is somehow empowering their child to be some sort of like, I don't know, activist or like some caring and empathetic child. And I'm just like, oh my God, no, like let them be kids. Let them be
Well, this is
kids.
why this is
Yeah.
why the, anxiety in children is now presenting earlier and earlier. I mean, I think here in Florida, the governor signed a bill that like children had to be screened at age 8 or something like that. Did you hear that?
No.
But it makes a lot of sense. And I think, look, I think part of it is we live in a world where we're so much more inundated than ever with like garbage all
It's
the time.
awful. It's
It's
awful.
awful. It's
Except for the
everywhere.
CEO thing I did. I don't know why. Why is it so fascinating, by the way? Can you tell us? Like, why are we all so obsessed with this
I
story?
think the way the whole like I was at the gym this morning and my trainer was like, you got to pretend like everything's fine. Then people don't make a big deal of it. Like, had this guy not, he literally ducked down behind the seats. Like, dude, you literally had the scarlet letter, like, G, guilty on your head. Now
I
we know what you've done. We
And the
don't even,
girl behind them that clearly was like held hostage by their stupid affair that like had to be in their I feel like it was probably a team member that was like, I have to fucking go along with
oh, the one
this.
in the black t shirt?
Yeah, this girl had to
So
go along. What is she going to do? It's the CEO. It's like a person in power. I don't
actually,
know.
the New York Post
Mm.
posted about who she was a little while ago,
Who
and
is she?
I noticed the post has since been deleted. She's a new hire in the HR department at that company.
Oh,
So my thought was like, at first I'm like, screw this bitch. She's in on the act, like she's keeping the secrets. But then I'm like,
no.
this is the collateral damage of an affair because it's not just the families, it's not just the marriage, it's not just the kids. Now you've put people in a situation in your workplace. They're probably going to turn around and sue this CEO and the
I
affair
have
partner.
I have a story for you offline, not here, that I will tell you and you're going to die. But
It
yes,
sounds like it'd
this
be really good online though.
no, I can't. But I'm telling you, this happens, like you said, all the
So
time
my
in the
thought
workplace.
is, okay,
Yeah.
so I read about this girl before the post deleted the article, and I'm sure there's more information out there now by the time people are listening to this, but she was a new hire in the HR department. Obviously, it's unclear whether or not she knew, but from a young girl getting hired in a company standpoint, right? Maybe this is her first big job. I don't think that she was told, hey, you're going out with so and so tonight and they're having an affair. I think this was something that was probably just dropped into her lap. She's probably just trying to play along, like, doesn't know what to do in this situation. I don't think she has any responsibility to. I mean, who's she going to report it to? She can't report it to HR. He had an affair with the HR director. But
I
in other
know.
circumstances, that
I
would be the
know.
right thing to do, not
Oh,
necessarily like,
right. And that goes to show you like the internet is so ridiculous. People I love to weigh in. You have no idea what it's like to be someone with very little power in a place of someone with a lot of power and think you're gonna be some like social justice warrior. What are you gonna look up his emergency contact and like text a picture to the wife? Like, it's not gonna happen. So it's easier said than done. But I'm just like enamored by it. I mean, I just can't with the memes. They're so good. And yet at the same time, I have some hurt inside of me knowing that this is someone's like real life, that
and
like,
also knowing that 85% of affairs
of
begin in the
course.
workplace. And so if your partner's going to cheat on you, there's a likely, very high chance that it's happening with somebody at work. And so I think part of this, I think the people who have had the strongest negative reactions, like the ones who are yelling at me in my comments, are probably either the ones who have done something like this
Mm-hmm.
and or have been directly affected by it recently. But
Yeah.
listen,
It's like work. It's probably work. gym, school, neighborhood, right? Think about it. It's just like where you reside, like what you spend, where you spend your time. People don't have time to go out. If I don't have time to go out somewhere
Listen,
else.
I've been working with clients who have either cheated or been cheated on for
Hmm.
many years now, and the majority are work. Second to that, I've had many, many clients whose spouses cheated with the child's school teacher. Very often kindergarten teachers, like, okay.
Damn.
Yeah, homeschool maybe, I don't know. And then there's also the next door neighbor or the girl in the neighborhood who is also very happily married and they're all spending time together as couples. But either way,
Yeah.
it happens. And so we're all watching this from the lens of like, I'm so glad it's not me. And also justice for this poor wife who has to find out in this way. And also the karma here is beautiful. There's so many aspects to it that make it like a TV movie.
Oh my God, I know. And it's Coldplay.
And it's
Wait, did you
Coldplay.
see that Nikki was at the concert? Like
Yes.
I mean, I have to like check her Instagram to see if she put anything on there good because then she did.
Our friend, my good friend Nikki Marie, that you guys know, Nikki Marie Inc. She actually just had a post go viral. She was with her brother at the concert, and he like did a video of her crying, listening to one of the songs, and it was like when you're a single divorced mom at a Coldplay concert. Little did she know that that moment was also going to be viral for these cheating reasons.
Oh
It's
my God.
crazy. But Bethany Frankel just put something out that the post also just shared, that she was like, "Are you guys like, what are you smoking? Like." Coldplay, everybody you know goes to the Coldplay concert. Your
True.
neighbor, your grandmother, it spans
Yeah.
generations, right? Like, you want to have an affair, go to the Motel 6. Don't be not only at the concert, but on the Jumbotron embracing like idiots. Like,
That goes to show you like people's like ego and that like they think they can just come and go as they please and do what they want. Like ick. But yes, no, totally.
I
Um,
posted something on TikTok this morning that was like, here are ways, now that we know that 85% of affairs happen at the workplace, here are ways to not freak out when your husband tells you he's working late. And I just held up like a blank piece of paper because I don't know. I think we're all going to be like, oh, yeah, how'd
right.
that meeting go?
Yeah, how was Coldplay?
Tell me about that.
Wait, hold on. I forgot. I was looking for this. That's sorry. I was like on my phone, but I was looking. I remember there was research about this, about over disclosure for kids and why it's not
Oh,
good.
bringing it back to the topic. Good
I
job.
know. Wait, no, no. But like I was like, wait, when I was like blow drying my hair for this, I was like, I have to find this study. Schoenfeld and Di Maria, which we love that name, Di Maria. Okay.
Is
Over
that
to,
from school?
yeah, like
Okay.
the best teacher. Okay. Over disclosure, i.e., telling a 7-year-old all the reasons for divorce or venting, creates emotional overload and leads to internalize guilt within a child. So children should only be given just enough information. They should never be responsible for their child's well being. So, in times of stress, the studies show that age appropriate limited disclosure is what works. This is like empirically based research. So, it's not just our opinion, it's true. Like, you have to know it's age appropriate. It has to be a need to know basis. And I just think, like, always bring it back to that. And if you are so freaking emotional in the moment your child's talking to you, you have to tell them, I love you so much. I'm going to go take care of myself right now so I can answer your questions. That's so important. I love that you came to me. Blah,
I
blah,
didn't
blah.
do this recently, not in a situation about an affair, but like my daughter, God bless her, hasn't had to be privy to many disagreements between her dad and I. And recently she was, and I froze. And it's
Hmm.
that guilt piece that I can see being very, very real, because it's like, your child did not ask for this situation, right? You made the
No.
adult decision to divorce or cheat or whatever, but now this becomes the child's lived experience. And they already feel torn between two people. So when one's upset at the other one, there's a guilt associated with, well, I'm enjoying my time with this person, but they hurt my other parent. Am I bad? And this is very real, and it happens no matter whether there was an affair or not. And we have to be really cognizant of that.
Wait, I have a question then for you. So, a parent like you, who I know, because I know how you parent, who does everything in their power to put their child first and actually does, at what point, when you realize that you can't always, like, you really can't shield your child from the co-parenting relationship when it goes awry, like in front of them, like, at what point do you let them use what they've seen with their eyes and make their own judgment versus try to create the narrative for them? Like
So
when?
that's a really great question. And I think as well meaning parents, the ones who do want to be supportive of the child's relationship with the other parent, and my therapist pointed this out to me that there's a fine line between being a supportive co-parent, putting their feelings first and their relationship with the other parent first, and completely denying their reality, right?
Mm,
So like my daughter witnessed a disagreement. It, part of me wants to be like, oh, no, it's fine. It wasn't fine. She knew it
hmm.
was uncomfortable,
Right.
right? So what has to happen is like, just because they're a little bit older doesn't mean you start divulging everything, but you have to meet them where they're at in terms of what their experience was in each situation, right? You can't
Yes,
deny it. You can't
100%.
say, oh, that didn't happen. That's what used to happen to me. And it was terrible. It's why I can't trust myself. But for now we know better, for my daughter in this situation is like, yeah, it happened. It was
Hmm.
shitty. Tell me how you feel about it, and talk about it. It's just about like not letting the child internalize it. I talked
100%.
about this actually with Nikki on her podcast. With adults, when we go through stressful stuff, we're really good at like externalizing the feelings. We go to therapy, we go to yoga, we read a book, we talk to everybody who will listen. Kids don't have those choices. They don't have the autonomous control over their day-to-day life where they can go like take a yoga class for stress. They internalize it all. So if we're at least saying to them, yes, this happened, yes, I saw how hard it was for you, talk to me about it, even without answers, I think that's the best we can do.
Amazing. Yes. And I think you're right because that's what I'm going to butcher his quote. Gabor Mate says, like, it's not the trauma is not the thing that happened to you as much as it is what the story was and who was there for you to help you understand what happened to you. Right. And that,
Yes.
that is definitely like, over information and being privy to adult things is on ACEs. Like, that's a part of it. Right. Like, if you are overexposed to adult like things, with like let me say it again. You're exposed to adult like situations with no adult like control. Like that is the true meaning of like powerlessness for a child. So I love
Mhm.
I love how you said that. It was good. Of course it was good.
And I love that quote by him. I don't think I feel like I've seen it in bits and pieces, but it really is hitting me now because I have said regarding my own experiences as a
Hmm.
child that, and this is why I say it's not the divorce that fucks kids up, it's the things that happen after that the kids don't know how to cope with. I always say it's not what happened to me with my dad. It's the fact that there was no support afterwards. There was no, hey, that must have been really scary or hard or overwhelming. There was no therapy. There was no acknowledging of anything because I come from a culture and a family where everything's fine, put on a smile,
Hmm.
and that's the hardest part for a kid because we are not, some of us, even as adults, are not equipped to deal with traumatic events.
No, we're not. And I think that and I want to just go to someone that maybe has used that strategy. Like maybe like you're sitting here listening to this and you're like, yeah, I've been really telling my children that everything is okay. And you can say that things are okay for you in the sense of like mom's handling herself, dad is handling himself, but assuming that just because you're saying that you're okay and everything's okay, that means your child's okay is definitely a place to sort of open up a little more and just be like, you know what? Let me ask you how you feel about that. And that's okay if they tell you that they're sad or that they miss living in the same house. All those things are sad and beautiful that they're telling you. And I think
Mhm.
that that's what we always have to come back to because like you said, you didn't do maybe you did the damage. You didn't do the damage, but you're not going to create more damage by giving them appropriate honesty and support in your ear and allowing them to process it. Like that's not going to
Absolutely.
create more damage. What is, and like with perhaps what your parents or your mom did with so much like our parents generally try to do what they think is best for them with the resources they have, right? And it because that's a cultural thing, we just push it down, everything's fine. They think that that'll be fine for you too. What I notice now as a parent is my unhealthy coping strategies and defense mechanisms are things that just don't work for my kids, and they let you know right away. Like if your
Well,
child is, go ahead, sorry.
no, it's yes. Yeah, but also you look, you have the self-awareness to know that like some of your coping mechanisms A
Shit.
are not great and B what not what you would want your for your children, right? So I think also we've become more self-aware as a society. It's not to say you have to do things perfectly, but you have to be aware of the fact when you're not. Like Erin is not somebody who would ever let someone she knows suffer alone. She wasn't
Stop it.
feeling well the
Stop
other
it.
day.
You're so bad.
She
Yeah.
wasn't feeling well the other day, and she wouldn't let any of us be there for her. She's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. She was not fine, but it's like, it's this coping mechanism that I think is also largely due in part to our childhoods, where we had to
Yeah.
do things for ourselves. And, there's always people who are like, well, I turned out fine and I didn't have
Ugh.
any support. You didn't. And we now know that children shouldn't have to face things alone. So whether it's
No.
them finding out really uncomfortable information that they shouldn't have found out yet, ignoring it doesn't make it go away. A conversation does, but it has to be age appropriate. You cannot burden them with your emotions or things they're not ready to hear yet. Um, and just be that safe space. We know they need one to thrive. So
Amen.
if you're not watching, I suggest you do, so you could see Erin give her best friend the middle finger. She's so
I
kind. I love
did.
her.
She's so bad.
She's so
I
kind. I love
literally
her.
like this. I had an awful medical experience this weekend and I wouldn't let them.
I didn't give details. I said you weren't feeling good.
I know,
But like,
I know, but it's just too
it's
funny.
ironic because you are the one person that I know, if nobody else gave a shit, you'd be there, you'd show up, you'd force your way in the door for me. And it's like, we're all like, hello out there.
I know. You know what? Okay, awareness is the first step. And I did get better with that situation. I did. I'm getting better. I'm
But the
growing.
point is, you are not that way for your kids, right? Like,
No, oh my God, no.
you're not like, I don't need anyone, so you don't need anyone. You are in there. You are arms, elbows deep with whatever they've got going on.
I
And so the
know.
point is that just because you're not good at it for yourself doesn't mean you can't try and be good at it for your kids.
You know what? So true. And I always think like every parent I see in my practice is either they're overcompensating big time on what they didn't get, or they're trying to make their child fit into their coping mechanisms that aren't even really working for them either. And the truth is we all eventually find our balance, with that. And that's okay.
You just summed up my entire reality in parenting, Bella. One is overcompensating. One is like, I was fine, do it like this.
Yeah.
I talked all about overcompensation on the podcast with Nikki, and then in a workshop I did yesterday or 2 days ago, because it happens, but it is a way to pull back, right? Like I always say, letting your boundaries down and spoiling your children is not going to make up for the divorce guilt. The only thing you can overcompensate on with your kids that is not going to fuck them up is your presence and your love and your
Oh,
intentionality.
it's so true. I love that. It's so hard.
No, everything is like a double entendre,
I
like
know.
a paradox.
No.
Everything contradicts itself. It really is so hard. And I really am so glad that you can help us with this kind of conversation, because
You're welcome.
it's one of those things that, the poor children of these families, of the Coldplay people, are thrust into without any desire to be part of this experience.
I think there will be some sort of special on this. There has to be. There has to be.
I saw somebody posted something like they should have Karen Reed play the scorned. I don't know. It's going to be a Netflix
I
special.
know. I'm still loving all the memes. Unfortunately, if that's mean, I'm sorry, but it is.
I am too, and I'm just waiting, like constantly refreshing for Coldplay to make a statement. Like, is Chris Martin going to take responsibility for like the event that just?
I feel like something was said with him. Like I think he said something, but the CEO dude did make a statement.
I saw that, but then people were saying it was fake, and I
Oh,
was
ew!
hoping
I
so, because
can't.
it reeked of victim mentality. Let me see. If he
I'm
made
so over how much I cannot trust anything I read. It's beyond. Like by the way, like just today, I'm moving back to using research to support almost everything I say at this point, because I just feel like there's so much out there that you cannot trust, even though some things can be anecdotal.
Wait, there's
But
an article that says Astronomer, the company that Andy Byron works for, responds to CEO affair allegations. I want to acknowledge them. Oh, there's a fake statement that circulated on social media
annoying.
that pretends to be his apology.
Mm.
Um,
It wasn't even a good fake statement. Make it better. That was
a terrible one.
like, make it like funny, make it like awful. Like, why would you put one out that's like trying to be what he would say? Ew.
Ay, ay, ay.
There
I
are
know they're like,
by the way, as a former HR person, there are serious implications for HR. Like, I mean, that is like the biggest no no. You know, it's HR is so much. It's similar to like being a therapist. You know that there's boundaries. Clearly, none for her. There are boundaries that have to exist. It's just like so wrong. I can't.
it's the irony. That's why. I mean, that's why this is like made for social media
We're living
viralness.
we're living our best lives this Friday because of it. Okay, I
I'm
know.
sorry that we're enjoying this so much.
Mm.
But again, we can't enjoy it too much because we never want to be on the other side of that.
Listen, anyone affected by this, like in that circle of those people, you can reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you.
And again, my own clients who have dealt with finding out about their partner's infidelity with a coworker, it's brutal, it's painful. Yes, these people have come out the other side and been really grateful to have found out. And that's it happened to my mom.
Mm.
Um, and she was a warrior because of it, but it still doesn't make it hurt any less. And you're doing a really brutal job of having to carry yourself through it and also your children. That is not lost on me. That is not lost on Erin. And that's what we're here for, is to support you through that.
I'll see you tomorrow night.
Godspeed.
I'm just,
Ugh, don't
I'm
even want to
tired.
drink now. Thank you for listening. Those of you who have made it this far in the episode, I am your host, Michelle Dempsey-Multack. You can find Erin over on Instagram at It's the Conscious Mom. I will link all of her wonderful offerings, especially her recently published book, 3 Minutes for Mom, that is garnering fame all over the place for being able to give moms what they finally need, what they've needed for so long: small, impactful, real, easy to do pieces of information. You're going to love it. I'll link it here.
You
Thank you
tell
guys, and
him,
we'll see you
Eddie.
next
I
time
heard
on
him in the
Yin Yang Magic.
background. Love you. Bye.
Bye. Someone's at my door. I got to go.